Hello, hello. Welcome to my live grant strategy sessions. I am Crystal Petrie, founder of Crystal Petrie Consulting, and I help and I get the honor and privilege to help organizations develop stronger strategies for pursuing grant funding. If you are joining me live today, and I sure hope that you are, tell me, where are you joining me from? What city are you joining me from? What state are you joining me from? What country are you joining me from? If you have ever submitted a grant and received a rejection letter, put yes in the comments because this live is for you. If you have ever looked at a grant application and thought about applying for that grant and didn't, put thinking about it in the comments because this live is for you. What I'm going to discuss today, the number one reason funders reject an application and how to fix it. So important. Take notes, get your pen and paper, but also come back and listen again and again. I want to start with something that actually might surprise you. The number one reason I see organizations struggle with grant applications isn't necessarily bad writing. It is misalignment. I am going to say that again. The number one reason most organizations struggle with receiving grant funding is not bad writing, it is misalignment. Your organization may be doing amazing work. Your organization may have a strong mission statement. Your organization may have an excellent program, and that it may even be beautifully written. But if what you are proposing doesn't clearly align with what the funder is wanting to support, the application most likely will be rejected. And today I am going to show you what that looks like and what you need to do differently. Let's imagine you find a grant offering $50,000. You immediately think, we need this money. I need this money. My organization needs this $50,000. So you start downloading the application, you start writing the application, you spend hours and hours and days answering the question, you polish your narrative over and over again, you make sure your grammar is perfect, the font is perfect, your letterhead is gorgeous. You've done all the things, and you submit. And guess what? You get a rejection letter, or you get nothing at all, because some funders unfortunately do that. They don't respond, they don't say you've been rejected, they just don't say anything. The first thing you think is, my application probably wasn't good enough. I mean, that might be it, but most likely it's not. But what if that wasn't the problem? What if it wasn't the application? What if the real problem was that the funder for your program was not who you submitted your application to? This is what I want you to understand today. A grant opportunity isn't automatically a good opportunity because it offers money. Point number one, okay? When you're searching for grants, and I know this is asking a lot, but when you are searching for grants, stop looking at the dollar amount first. The dollar amount is the least of what you need to look at and what you need to search for. Instead, look at the funder's priorities first, not the dollar amount, the funder's priorities first. And ask yourself, what does this funder actually care about? Who do they want to serve? What geographic areas do they support? All of this is so very important. And all of this is what you need to look at before you look at the dollar amount. What types of programs do they fund? What outcomes are they looking for? Does our organization genuinely fit? All of this information can be found on the funder's website. They always have it front and center. What they care about. Who do they want to serve? Are they serving high school graduates? Do they want to serve high school dropouts? Do they want to serve veterans? Who do they serve? What geographical areas are they serving? Maybe they're just serving one state. Maybe they're serving one city. Maybe they're serving one community. Are you located in the state that they're serving? Because if not, that's misalignment. Are you located in the city that they are serving? Because if not, that's misalignment. If they are serving veterans, are you serving veterans as well? Because if not, that is misalignment. Because $100,000 is not a good opportunity if it does not align with what the funder wants to support. Remember, all money ain't good money. And I know that's not grammatically correct, but it makes sense. Don't ask how much money are they giving. Ask, why would this funder want to invest in what we do? Why would this funder even care? Point 2. Here's another mistake that I see all the time. An organization reads the eligibility requirements and says, we're eligible. But guess what? You know there's a but. Eligibility does not mean competitive. You might technically qualify to apply. That does not mean your program is a strong match for this funder's priorities. There's a huge difference between we're allowed to apply and this funder has a compelling reason to invest in our program. That's the difference I want you to start looking for. And again, these are all the things you need to look for and be able to answer before you look at the money. The money should be one of the last things you look at and you look for. I do know that is a big ask. I do know this is a mind shift thing that I am wanting you to do. But I believe in you. You can absolutely do this. you can absolutely start looking at the alignment before the money. I have a question for you. Have you ever found a grant where you were technically qualified, but you were not sure if you are actually a strong fit? Put yes in the comments if you have experienced that. Also, have you ever found a grant where you were technically qualified, but you were not sure if you were actually a strong fit? If that's never happened to you, put no in the comments. I want to hear from you now. Point number 3. Even when your organization is a good fit, you still have to communicate that fit clearly. This is where positioning becomes so important. You cannot expect a funder to connect the dots for you. You cannot expect a funder to put the puzzle pieces together for you. You cannot expect a funder to figure out what is 2 plus 2 for you. And just like what Denzel Washington said, one of my favorite actors in one of my favorite movies, Philadelphia, it is a hard watch, let me just say. Explain it to them like they are a 5-year-old. You have to explain your fit, your connection to the funder like they are a 5-year-old. You have to show them. Here is the problem you are trying to solve. Explain that to them like a 5-year-old. Here is who we are serving. Explain that to them like a 5-year-old. Here is what we are doing. Explain that to them like a 5-year-old. Here is our evidence. Here is our data. Explain that to them like a 5-year-old. And here is why our program directly supports the outcomes you are trying to achieve. Explain that to them like, you guessed it, a 5-year-old. When that connection is clear, when you make the connection clear, the funder does not have to work to figure out why your organization belongs in their funding portfolio. Don't make the funder connect the dots. Connect the dots for them like a 5-year-old. Okay, story time, story time. If you have been tuning in and watching, you know I love a good story. So let me give you an example here. Turn on your imagination ears. Imagine an organization that is doing excellent work in its community. They have a strong mission. They have clients. They have programs. They have community relationships. They even have results. On paper, they look like an amazing organization. But they're applying for a grant and their application is not getting through. Why is that? Why is the application not getting through? Why are they getting rejected? They position themselves around everything that they do. They're trying to tell the funder their entire story, but they're not clearly showing the connection between their program and the funder's specific priorities. You hear it because I hear it. So the organization changes its approach And instead of saying, here's everything our organization does, they say, here's the specific problem we are addressing. Here's the population we are serving. Here is what our program does. Here is the evidence that it works. Here's the data. Here's the results. And here is how it directly aligns with your funding priority. That is a completely different application. That is a completely different narrative. Guess what happens? The organization suddenly becomes better. Not overnight, because their mission didn't change, their program didn't change. The positioning is what changed. And that's the important part. Sometimes the problem isn't the organization. Sometimes the problem isn't the writing. Sometimes the problem isn't the font. Sometimes the problem is actually how the organization and the funder are being connected. Now that's strategy. Now let's talk about something I want you to absolutely remember. Writing does not equal winning. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Writing does not equal winning. Good writing matters, absolutely. Grammatical sentences matter, absolutely. Run-on sentences matter, absolutely. But you need to communicate clearly. That's what matters. You need to answer all of the questions. That's what matters. You need to follow the instructions exactly. That's what matters. But beautiful writing cannot fix a bad funding strategy. So before you spend hours and hours, days and days writing your next application, ask yourself these 5 questions, okay? Question number 1, why this funder? Why are you wanting to apply to this funder? Question number 2, why this program? Question number 3, why this population? Question number 4, why now? Question number 5, why us? If you cannot answer those 5 questions clearly, I would stop before you start writing. Go back to the strategy. Because your goal isn't simply to submit an application or submit a bunch of applications. That's not your goal. Your goal is to submit a competitive application to the right funder for the right program for the right reason. Here's something I want you to do after my live. So once you finish watching me, okay, this is what I want you to do. Take the next grant you are considering and write down the funder's top 3 priorities. Remember, you can find that on the funder's website. You can find it on the funder's social media account. You can also find it within the grant application. Write down the funder's top 3 priorities. Then write down your program's top 3 strengths. Now compare them. Do those lists connect? Are those lists aligned? If they don't, if they do not connect, if they do not align, you may have found your problem. And I would suggest you think twice about applying for that grant. So let's go back to my question today. Why are funders rejecting your applications? Sometimes the answer isn't that your organization isn't good enough. Sometimes it's that you are pursuing the wrong opportunity. You are pursuing the wrong grant. You are pursuing the wrong funder. Or you are clearly not showing the funder why your organization belongs in their funding strategy. And if you are sitting there thinking, Crystal, I honestly don't know if my problem is my writing, my strategy, my program, the grants I'm pursuing. I literally do not know. If that's what you are thinking, that's exactly why I created my grant strategy call. I invite you to schedule a grant strategy call with me. You can go right here to my website, www.capetryllc.com, and schedule a free grant strategy call with me. Again, go to my website, www.capetryllc.com, and schedule a free grant strategy call with me. This is an opportunity for us to look at where you are, what you're trying to accomplish, what you've been doing to pursue funding, and where you may be getting stuck. We're going to determine what makes sense for your next best step. That could be grant research, that could be grant writing, that could be grant coaching, or it could be getting your organization as a whole better prepared before you submit another application. You do not need to guess which service you need. That's where the strategy conversation is for. Again, go to my website, www.capetryllc.com, and schedule a free grant strategy call with me. If you know you have been applying and not getting results, I don't want you to simply keep applying for another grant tomorrow and the next day and the next day and hoping that something changes. Let's figure out your strategy first. Again, schedule your free grant strategy call with me on my website, www.capetryllc.com. And if you found today's session valuable, share it with another organization who needs this information. Remember, writing your message on the page. Remember, writing gets your message on the page. Strategy helps get you in front of the right person. I'm Crystal Petrie, and I'll see you next Tuesday at my next live grant strategy session. Until then, keep building, keep serving, and keep positioning your organization for funding success. Educate, empower, and elevate.